a Brazilian influencer dubbed the Cocaine Barbie, was arrested in February of 2024 after police were notified of a picture on her Instagram story that inadvertently exposed a hidden drug stash at her residence. 20-year-old Eduarda Marquez amassed a following of over 20,000 people through social media posts that showcased her designer wardrobe and glitzy lifestyle. She was also known to post videos of herself performing daring motorcycle stunts, only deepening her glamorous, carefree online persona. On February the 21st, law enforcement showed up at the young woman's flat after hearing about the incriminating photograph on Instagram. According to subsequent reports, Marquez had 13 bags of cocaine, marijuana, and a large amount of cash at her apartment. Officers seized the contraband and placed her under arrest on a charge of having drugs without permission. Although the amount of drugs in Marquez's possession was described as not excessively high, police reportedly found evidence that she was taking part in a trafficking ring. On March the 3rd, the influencer took to Instagram to announce that she was selling her prized Honda motorcycle in order to cover legal fees. Number 9. Robert Esselborn Jr. In November of 2018, video footage surfaced online in which a young man was shown filming himself as he vandalized a car. In one clip, the individual could be heard uttering obscenities as he stomped and kicked a silver Toyota Camry. A second video showed the male suspect continuing to damage the car as someone else filmed him. The young man was identified by police as 22-year-old Robert Esselborn Jr. from San Antonio, Texas. Esselborn's incriminating video clips were reportedly filmed at a parking lot of a Stone Oak area business. It was later reported that the driver of the vehicle being attacked was borrowing it from someone else at the time and had parked it while he worked at the establishment in question. Esselborn and an unnamed associate confronted the individual after hearing that he damaged it on his commute to work. The manager of the business asked the two men to leave, at which point Esselborn launched a flurry of kicks on the car, causing about $10,000 worth of damage. He was arrested on a charge of criminal mischief and held on a $5,000 bond. Less than a year later, in July of 2019, reports surfaced that Esselborn had been gunned down following a dispute outside a San Antonio home. The suspect in his murder, Francisco Garay Jr., told police that Esselborn had been threatening his life leading up to the outbreak of gunfire. Number 8. The Famous Twins. A brawl broke out at Matra Park in Mobile, Alabama on March the 10th of 2022. As the fight was coming to an end, a pair of local twins, Consuela and Ali Jones, started filming with their cell phones. Shortly thereafter, the sisters, who gained over 1 million TikTok followers under the handle The Famous Twins, began firing off gunshots, prompting the crowd to scatter. 2 people were injured in the shooting, including an unnamed 16-year-old. When police arrived at the scene, the twins were arrested on charges of second-degree assault. Mobile's police chief told the local press that the social media stars likely pulled the dangerous stunt in order to attract more followers to their TikTok profile. The incident marked the second time in less than a year that Consuela Jones, also known as Sway Bentley, got into trouble with the law. Back in September of 2021, she was arrested on multiple charges, including drug possession, second-degree domestic violence, and burglary. The sisters re-emerged in headlines in January of 2023. The Mobile Police Department reported that an officer was working at a neighborhood Walmart when he spotted Consuela, who had outstanding felony warrants. As he attempted to detain the young woman, her sister allegedly struck him, then fled the scene. Consuela was taken to jail on additional charges of resisting arrest, failure to obey, and disorderly conduct. Meanwhile, Ali turned herself into the police, whereupon she faced 2 counts of second-degree assault and disorderly conduct. Number 7. Taya Posley. 23-year-old Taya Posley from Sanford, Florida, was arrested in April of 2022 after posting a video to social media in which she was shown slapping her infant child in the face. The young woman could be heard shouting at the baby in the upsetting footage, which went viral online. After local police caught wind of the video, officers were sent to Posley's home in the Wind Chase apartment complex to conduct a welfare check. Law enforcement were reportedly told that the abuse showcased in the footage had been going on consistently for about a year. Posley was consequently arrested and charged with 1 count of cruelty toward a child. The infant was initially removed from the young woman's care and transferred to the custody of Child Protective Services. However, after she posted her $2,000 bail, it was reported that the baby was returned to her. A woman claiming to be Posley stated on social media that she was seeking to put the child up for adoption. Number 6. Joravar Singh Khalsi and Lucky Kamboj. An Indian YouTuber by the name of Joravar Singh Khalsi was arrested on March the 2nd of 2023 following a social media stunt gone wrong in the city of Gurugram. The incident unfolded on the underpass of DLF Golf Course Road, where Khalsi and his friend Lucky Kamboj allegedly sought to recreate a scene from a web series known as Fazi. As part of the reenactment, the two men threw currency notes onto the roadway, which was shown in the video they would later post to social media. Khalsi reportedly drove the car while Kamboj, who was wearing a mask, tossed the money out of the trunk. The video garnered a lot of attention online, prompting an investigation by Gurugram police. Both men were arrested under the Motor Vehicle Act for dangerous driving and endangering the lives of others. Khalsi told investigators that the stunt was only meant to promote his YouTube channel and stated that the currency notes were fake. As of the most recent updates, the case was still ongoing. Number 5. Naledi Roberts. On March the 23rd of 2023, sheriff's deputies were dispatched to a private residence in unincorporated Largo, Florida. They subsequently made contact with 17-year-old Naledi Roberts, who is accused of forcing an infant to smoke marijuana, according to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Roberts was babysitting for her 16-year-old friend, the child's mother. At some point, she began filming herself as she placed the lit marijuana cigarette into the 1-year-old girl's mouth. The embers began to glow brighter, indicating that the child inhaled on the cigarette before the teen placed it back in her own mouth. As the video ended, Roberts was hit with a felony count of child abuse upon being arrested and taken to the Pinellas Juvenile Assessment Center. She initially told officers that she had in fact been smoking near the baby, but denied putting the cigarette in the child's mouth. When confronted with video footage of the incident, which she herself had posted to social media, Roberts confessed. Number 4. David Mills. Between January of 2022 and August of 2023, a deputy from the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office in Oregon was accused of performing lewd acts in the office, as well as his patrol car on several occasions. The man, named as David Mills, repeatedly filmed himself with his genitals exposed as he carried out self-pleasing acts while in uniform and on duty. Mills would then upload his sordid videos online, reportedly on OnlyFans. In one particularly distasteful recording session, the deputy allegedly contaminated someone else's water bottle, then allowed them to drink from it without telling them that it was tainted. A complaint was first issued to local authorities on September the 1st of 2023. The sheriff's office received a tip that one of their employees was posting explicit content online, much of it having been filmed in areas of the station that weren't accessible to the public. Mills was swiftly identified as the culprit and placed on administrative leave. He faced a number of criminal charges, including public indecency, official misconduct, and abuse of venerated objects. Shortly before Christmas that year, Mills resigned from the department while his charges were still pending. Number 3. Amanda Nasser. 31-year-old Amanda Nasser, a sign language interpreter who worked at Louisa County High School in Virginia, was arrested on severe criminal charges in September of 2016. The woman, a mother from an unincorporated area called Bumpus, was accused of having an intimate relationship with a freshman student from September the 18th to the 26th. Nasser inundated the teenage victim with hundreds of text messages. She sent nude pictures of herself and solicited intercourse on multiple occasions during the course of their correspondence. Nasser even suggested to the boy that she should befriend his mother in order for them to meet up outside of school hours. When questioned by police, she initially denied having relations with this student. The incriminating content on Nasser's phone, however, including the pictures she'd taken herself, made her pleas of innocence hard to believe for investigators. It also emerged that on at least 4 occasions, Nasser had picked up the student in a van that was specially equipped with a bed. The pair reportedly had intercourse during their encounters in Nasser's custom van, to which the latter eventually confessed following her arrest. It was announced that the former teacher's aide faced a maximum of 230 years behind bars for the charges against her, which included solicitation of a minor and indecent liberties of a student by someone in a supervisory capacity. In January of 2018, she was formally sentenced to 90 years in prison, all but 7 of which were suspended, having been convicted of 18 felony counts. Today's topic was requested by Bowen Rockets 1962. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Kendra Sunderland. In January of 2015, a video surfaced online in which a young woman could be seen pleasuring herself in the middle of a public library. After receiving hundreds of thousands of views, the video was removed from most social media platforms, though it remained on several adult film websites. The young woman involved was identified as 19-year-old Kendra Sunderland, a former student at Oregon State University. According to the local press, Sunderland dropped out of college and started creating content for adult websites in 2014. She reportedly returned to her alma mater in order to film the now infamous webcam video in the Valley Library on campus. Upon being identified, Sunderland, who gained the nickname Library Girl, was arrested and charged with public indecency. She later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to pay a fine of $1,000. In the years following the incident, Sunderland has garnered increased notoriety as an adult film actress. Right after number 1, we will line up our previous episode about when practically ratting yourself out goes wrong. Stick around if you haven't seen that one yet. Number 1. Whitney Beale. On October the 10th of 2015, Florida woman Whitney Beale started live streaming on the video service app Periscope. The 23-year-old was clearly intoxicated as she spoke to viewers from the driver's seat of a moving vehicle. At one point, Beale bluntly stated, "I'm driving home drunk," prompting someone watching to contact Lakeland police. Per updates from the department, the Periscope viewer managed to help law enforcement identify Beale and zero in on her location. The young woman was eventually stopped by officers who reportedly smelled alcohol on her breath. She also failed field sobriety tests and was subsequently arrested. Beale threw up in the back of the police car before arriving at the county jail and being booked on a charge of DUI, her first such offense. In February of 2016, she appeared before a judge and pleaded no contest. Later that month, she was spared jail time but ordered to complete alcohol evaluation and treatment. Additionally, she was given a year of probation and her driver's license was suspended for 6 months. In August of 2013, the mayor of New York City and officials from the NYPD announced what at the time was described as the largest gun bust in the city's history. Following a months-long undercover operation, law enforcement retrieved 254 firearms, a number of which had been reported stolen, and arrested 19 people. The investigation and consequent 552-count indictment was sparked by the social media activity of local rapper Matthew "Neno" Best, who was named in the conference announcing the bust. Best had bragged online about selling guns out of his Ocean Hill recording studio and frequently posted photos with firearms and wads of cash. He was wiretapped by the NYPD, and investigators traced the operation back to two men in the Carolinas who smuggled guns separately but used the same middlemen in NYC. Walter Walker and Earl Campbell sourced the weapons from suppliers in their hometowns of Sanford, North Carolina, and Rock Hill, South Carolina. They used cheap Chinatown buses to smuggle them into New York City, where the man at the center of distribution was Best's friend, Omol Adeji. The rapper was only charged with conspiracy, but his decision to flaunt his illicit lifestyle had basically brought down the entire operation and resulted in serious charges for its leading figures. Number 8. El Chino Anthrax. Jose Rodrigo Arechiga Gamboa, also known as El Chino Anthrax or Scarface Reborn, was at one point one of the most feared men in South America. He was the co-founder of Los Anthrax, the leading enforcer unit of the notorious Sinaloa cartel, and provided armed services for its leader, drug lord Ismael El Mayo Zambada. In spite of being a wanted man with a $15 million reward for his capture, the latter has never been arrested or incarcerated. Gamboa's squad of assassins was connected to a series of gruesome killings carried out on the cartel's behalf. It included the murder of 3 men who were hung from a bridge in 2011 in retaliation for a senior cartel member who'd been killed. Gamboa was also suspected with masterminding the killing of Francisco Rafael Arellano Felix, the leader of the Tijuana cartel. He was gunned down by a man disguised as a clown while celebrating his birthday in Baja California Sur in October of 2013. Around the same time, Gamboa was wanted by the US government for importing methamphetamine and cocaine into California. He nevertheless continued to flaunt his lavish lifestyle on social media. Some of the images showed gold-plated firearms, him holding an assault rifle out of a Lamborghini window, attending extravagant parties, or even meeting celebrities, such as Paris Hilton. The Los Anthrax leader became the subject of narco folk songs who described him as an elegant and fit man with a taste for yachts, champagne, and luxury cars. Gamboa's boasting would eventually translate to him snitching on himself and thus lead to his downfall. Even though he'd blur his face on the photos he posted of himself, the authorities were still able to track his movements through the posts. On December the 31st of 2013, he was arrested by Dutch police as he arrived in Amsterdam while traveling under a fake name. The 33-year-old had altered his appearance and fingertips, but advanced forensics confirmed his identity. He was extradited to the US and in 2015 admitted drug charges as well as facilitating violence for the Sinaloa cartel. After serving several years in a federal penitentiary, Gamboa was released and placed on house arrest in March of 2020. On May the 9th of that year, he was reported missing. Less than a week later, he was found dead in Ayun, Sinaloa, in a black SUV along with his sister and her husband. Number 7. Raymond Michael Weber. On January the 30th of 2021, law enforcement in California were alerted to a horrific Instagram live stream shared by a man in Solano County. He was identified as 29-year-old Raymond Michael Weber, who recorded himself holding a gun with the bodies of 2 females lying on the floor of a Vacaville apartment. Officers from the local police department made their way to the Rocky Hill Apartments, a military housing complex, but Weber refused to surrender and barricaded himself in the apartment. An 8-hour standoff ensued, during which negotiators and SWAT teams were called to the scene. Weber was named as the older brother of local rapper Marcus Weber, who performed as Uzi Marcus. He was also reported to have served in the army but was not an active duty soldier at the time of the incident and not connected to the nearby Travis Air Force Base. The standoff ended after a brief struggle in which law enforcement subdued Weber using a taser. The lifeless females found inside the apartment were his fiancée, 26-year-old Savannah Theberg, and an unnamed Elk Grove teenager. The police investigated human trafficking as a possible factor leading up to the double homicide. Weber faced multiple charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder. In 2014, he'd been linked to the fatal shooting of his then-girlfriend, 19-year-old Nicole Duarte. While it was suspected that he'd been present during the killing, his younger brother, Antoine, eventually pleaded no contest to the murder. Number 6. Eric Edwards. In early August of 2008, Eric Edwards was brought in for questioning by law enforcement in Dallas, Texas, in connection to the shooting death of Mikhail Hudson, which had occurred in late July of that same year. The suspect and an accomplice were believed to have followed the victim in another vehicle and fatally opened fire on him. Dallas homicide detective Rick Duggan started interrogating Edwards, and their interaction was caught on a video that would later become viral and featured on an episode of After the First 48. In his initial version of events, the suspect claimed that his accomplice, who'd been driving the vehicle, had fired the fatal shots. He then changed his story to say that he'd actually been the one driving while his partner was the gunman. Duggan told Edwards that neither version of events was supported by the evidence. The detective then changed the tone of the conversation by talking about the victim and the tragedy of his passing. Edwards, seemingly forgetting he was in an interrogation room, revealed that he knew Hudson and that his brother had passed away 6 months prior. He then told Duggan, "His brother Marcus and the one I shot is named Mike." The detective immediately pointed out that Edwards had just said, "The one I shot?" The suspect tried to backtrack on the inadvertent confession, but he was arrested for murder. Number 5. Amber Campbell and John Arwood. In late December of 2014, Florida couple Amber Campbell and John Arwood trespassed at the Marine and Environmental Science Center of the Daytona State College. Their intentions were unclear, but the escapade had resulted in them being chased and eventually taking refuge in a custodian's closet. The facility was closed for the holiday, so Arwood and Campbell, aged 31 and 25, respectively, remained in the closet. After about 2 days, Arwood called the police to ask for help, reporting that they were trapped. Law enforcement tracked his cell phone and reached the couple, expecting to free them from their ordeal. They found Arwood and Campbell surrounded by human feces, as well as copper scouring pads used for smoking methamphetamine and crack cocaine. Law enforcement smelled meth inside the closet and suspected that the couple's mind state during the incident had been influenced by drug consumption. It was regarded as the only reasonable explanation for why they'd waited for so long to call 911 and why they'd never checked the door. They were never trapped in the closet, as it had been left unlocked, and they could have simply walked out at any moment. They were arrested for trespassing. Arwood had been jailed 5 times in the past for offenses that included drug possession and burglary. Campbell had escaped from a mental health facility in late April of 2013, but was recaptured after crashing her brother's car. Once in custody, she tricked officers into loosening her handcuffs and lowering the cruiser's windows by claiming that she couldn't breathe. Campbell escaped and fled into nearby woods. She punched a deputy who chased her down, but was ultimately subdued with a stun gun. For the escape and assault, Campbell was given 3 years probation, which she violated through the closet incident. Number 4. Maxi Sopo. Cameroon man Maxi Sopo arrived in the US in 2003 and initially made a living by selling roses in Seattle nightclubs. By early 2009, he'd masterminded a fraud scheme that involved persuading young co-conspirators to lie about their income and get loans for imaginary cars. Sopo targeted several banks and credit unions in the Seattle area, obtaining over $200,000. When federal authorities started investigating him, he drove a rented car to Mexico in February of 2009 and disappeared. Law enforcement initially had a hard time tracking him down, but a few months later, Sopo updated his Facebook status. His profile photo showed him partying in front of a backdrop featuring logos of BMW and Courvoisier Cognac, while wearing a black jacket emblazoned with a white lion. Sopo's Facebook profile was set to private, but his list of friends wasn't. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Scoville combed through it and found that one of the man's friends was a former Department of Justice official. Scoville sent a message requesting a phone call. The former official accepted and reported to have met Sopo a few times in Cancun nightclubs, unaware that he was a fugitive. After finding out exactly where the fraudster was living, the former official shared the information with Scoville, who in turn alerted Mexican law enforcement. In October of 2009, Sopo was arrested and prepared for extradition to the US, where he faced up to 30 years in prison. It would later be revealed that while on the run, he'd been living in an upscale apartment complex while working at a hotel. He'd been posting on Facebook about living in paradise, partying in nightclubs, and lounging on the beach. Number 3. Rodney Knight. Washington, D.C. man Rodney Knight broke into the home of Washington Post reporter Mark Fisher in December of 2010. The invasion took place during the day when the house was empty, and Fisher would later blog about it and the impact it had had on his family. 19-year-old Knight stole the reporter's new winter jacket, but most of what he took actually belonged to the man's 15-year-old son. It included his laptop, iPod, savings bonds, and cash. What Knight did next, however, would result in a DC area detective describing him as the most stupid criminal he'd ever seen. He used the teen's laptop to take a photo of himself while wearing Fisher's winter jacket and holding the stolen cash. Knight then went on the teen's Facebook account and posted the photo, which clearly showed his face. Fisher wrote in the column that his son had coped well with the burglary until seeing the taunting image online, adding, "That's when the pathetic indignity of the burglary hit." A few weeks after the incident, on January the 2nd of 2011, Knight was arrested by local law enforcement after a foot chase. He was found to be in possession of an unlicensed pistol that was loaded with one round in the chamber and another in the magazine. He eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree burglary and carrying a pistol without a license, for which he was jailed for 27 and 17 months, respectively. Number 2. Tyrell Jones. In 2014, the FBI and DEA teamed up and launched an operation aimed at arresting drug traffickers, primarily based on researching their social media for photos in which they'd flaunted their activities. The practice was so widespread that over the course of a single weekend in the spring of that year, the agencies arrested over 350 dealers following sting operations throughout the US. They also recovered over $2 million in cash, hundreds of pounds of marijuana, and at least 50 pounds of cocaine. The total street value of the haul was estimated at $7 million. One of the arrested dealers, Minneapolis man Tyrell Jones, posted a photo of the warehouse where he kept his drugs and bragged about moving weight. In doing so, he unknowingly geotagged the location and basically gave up the location of his stash. Law enforcement tracked down the warehouse, found Jones inside, and arrested him without incident. Number 1. Martin Bryant. On April the 28th of 1996, Australian man Martin Bryant carried out the deadliest mass shooting in the country's history. After gunning down bed and breakfast owners David and Noeline Martin, the 28-year-old headed to the Port Arthur historic site, a popular tourist destination in Tasmania's Port Arthur. Bryant rapidly moved through a cafe and nearby gift shop, indiscriminately killing 20 people with a Colt AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. He continued firing as he fled in his yellow Volvo 244, claiming further victims. His spree progressed to theft of a golden BMW and the killing of its 4 occupants, as well as taking a motorist hostage. Bryant returned to the bed and breakfast where he was cornered by the police. Officers tried negotiating with him, but he ultimately killed his hostage, set the building ablaze, and tried to escape in the confusion. Bryant was captured after suffering heavy burns to his back and buttocks. His spree, counted among the deadliest in history, left 35 people dead and 23 injured, leading to tighter gun laws in Australia. Bryant's motivation was mainly attributed to his desire for attention, as well as his anger towards the Martins, who'd refused to sell the B&B to his father. The man later took his own life, contributing to Bryant's mental unrest. Years after the mass shooting, a disturbing and previously unseen video surfaced of one of Bryant's early police interviews. He seemingly reveled in the destruction he'd caused as he was smiling and continually asking detectives about how many people had been killed and injured. Bryant, whose reported IQ of 66 was well below average, baited the police with a confession before snitching on himself while mistakenly believing that the cameras had been turned off. He told officers that he hoped the culprit would be caught before pointing to himself and mouthing the word "me." Bryant then told detectives that they should have put that on recording and seemed shocked upon being informed that he was still being filmed. By then, however, the evidence against him was insurmountable. He was given 35 life sentences with an added 1,652 years, all without the possibility of parole. Thanks for watching. Would you rather find out that you accidentally started live streaming in the bedroom or that you drunk dialed your grandparents? Let us know in the comments section below.